The word appreciate comes from the Latin word appreciare, which literally translates to appraise or to set the value of a thing. So when we are looking for people to appreciate, it becomes this interesting question of where is the value? Where is the good? Who's doing something good right now? And in that moment, I actually see our pilot sitting at a Chick-fil-A, like having lunch because our flight was delayed. And so I'm like, all right, well, hey, what if, what if I thank the pilots on my plane? I fly all the time and I always do a little prayer for safe travel when we take off. And I thought, man, I've never thanked the pilots on my plane. Let's do that today. But then there's this problem, Brad. And this problem is, and this is where the project really took an interesting turn, which is I don't know these people. We've never met. How do you thank somebody you don't even know, you've never spent any time with? And the nature of that understanding of appreciation, which is to pull out the value from, ask the question, where's the value? It causes us to be curious. And since I didn't know these people, I thought, well, I've got to get to know them. So I walk up and I say, hey, do you mind if I have a seat? And they're like, yeah, go for it. So I sit down and I say, okay, well, this might seem weird, but I never get to talk to the pilots on my plane. I'm just curious what it's like to be you guys. Like, what's your favorite thing about being a pilot? And they started telling me all these amazing things. Like, they've got the best window office on planet Earth, right? Every day they're 30,000 feet above. They see the world differently than any human being does. And they say, that's an amazing part of it. I thought that's really cool. Then I asked them, so why did you become a pilot? Why did you get into this career? And what's fascinating, Brad, is I didn't realize this, but you have to decide a long time ago to do that job, right? It's not like Chipotle where you start making the bowls and then 4 weeks later you're running the store, right? Like you got to have spent thousands of hours in preparation to get that job. And so many of them were like, well, I've been wanting to do this since I was a kid. I went into the Air Force and, this is eventually just kind of what came after I got out. And I thought, man, that's fascinating. I didn't realize that. Third question I asked him was, so what's the hardest part about being a pilot? And you could see their energy change. And they all started talking about the same thing, which is how much they miss back at home for their work. Family birthdays, get-togethers, holidays. And then one pilot gets really excited and he's like, nope, not this year. This is the first time in 12 years I get to be home for Christmas Day. Mm. And my heart breaks for this guy. I'm like, this is what their life is like. So that in and of itself kind of became a framework that as I would write a thank you card to somebody, I would want to find out those three things. And this is ultimately what happened. So, I get on the plane and I pull out my stationery and then the cards kind of wrote themselves. And I said, dear pilot, it's probably strange to receive a thank you card from a passenger. But as I was boarding the plane today, I was thinking about how much I'm going to miss my family on this trip. And then I realized this is what you do every day for your job. I can't imagine how many birthdays, anniversaries, or special events you've sacrificed for your work. Not to mention the hundreds, if not thousands of hours you spent in the cockpit training for your job because nobody becomes a pilot by accident. And all of that to have a slightly bumpy landing and then have people complain about it. So whether you hear it enough or not, I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and everybody on our flight. And I write 2 cards to those pilots. We land in the next destination with enough time to get to my next flight. So I frantically hand them the cards while they're still in the cockpit as I'm exiting the plane. I jump on another flight to do the same thing. So I have 4 pilots, 4 cards. Now, this is what was wild. Now I'm landing in Philadelphia. This is the day that you and I meet, Brad. Now, I don't normally do this, but I have my business stationery with me, which had my name, cell phone number, and email physically printed on the card. This is what was nuts. Within 24 hours of landing in Philadelphia, 3 out of those 4 pilots personally contacted me to say thank you for the card that they received. One went on to say, John, in my 20 years of flying, I have never received a thank you card from a passenger. And I thought, that's crazy. How is it even possible? These guys with such a big, significant, important job, and no one's even taking the time just to say thank you to them. And I thought, geez, if that's the case for these guys with such a big, important job, what about everybody else in their careers, in their relationships, in their marriages. Like there's a huge appreciation deficit in the world. So Brad, when you and I met, it was right after that flight. And so in a lot of ways, that experience filtered how I got to meet you, how I got to show up. And of course, there's more, that, and then we have the waitress story after that. But I just want to pause because that in and of itself, Brad, set a stage for the entire next 362 days of that project.